Hello, welcome back. In this series, we are covering PM Body of Knowledge 6th edition. And now moving forward to Chapter 5, Project Scope Management.
Imagine for a moment, you're maybe an 8th grader somewhere in India, and you've just been handed this really exciting task, something that just immediately gets your mind buzzing. Maybe it's helping plan your school's annual day cultural program, that huge event everyone in the neighborhood looks forward to. Or maybe your family's right in the middle of planning a massive wedding, like a proper multi-day celebration with hundreds of guests, all the intricate ceremonies, endless food. Or hey, maybe it's just you dreaming of building that ultimate new gaming PC, the absolute top-of-the-line one with all the coolest parts. Now, think about those plans. Have you ever noticed how sometimes what you start planning for, it can slowly, almost without you noticing, get way bigger or much more complicated, or it just suddenly takes a sharp turn, completely different from your original idea. Like you might start out planning a simple short skit for the annual day, something easy to handle, but then a teacher jumps in, super enthusiastic. Oh, well, we must have a dazzling Bollywood dance number. It's tradition, the parents adore it. And then for the wedding, another relative pipes up. And what about a lovely puppet show during the reception? Wouldn't that be so unique? And boom! Suddenly, your little skit or straightforward wedding plan has just exploded into this massive multi-act production, or this unbelievably complex web of events.
That feeling, that exact sense of things sort of spiraling out of control. Or maybe the feeling that a project never quite finishes because new stuff keeps getting piled on. That's a universal challenge. It's something project managers face literally everywhere, whether they're in a fast-paced tech startup in Bengaluru, running a big event company in Delhi, or building massive skyscrapers in Mumbai. And this whole phenomenon, it actually has a name in the project world: scope creep. It's this quiet, cost and well-intentioned, but incredibly powerful force that can completely derail even the best plans. It leads to delays, costs going way up, and honestly, just a lot of frustration for everyone involved. So today we're going to take a really fascinating deep dive into the antidote for scope creep. It's called Project Scope Management. Think of it like developing this ultimate superpower, right? It helps you decide exactly what needs doing for your project, what absolutely doesn't, and crucially, how to stick to that plan. This is what ensures your project, whether it's at school play, the big family event, building your dream PC, or even a huge business venture, actually finishes successfully, on time, and importantly, within what you originally planned and budgeted for. It's like drawing really clear, visible boundaries around your playground. Everyone involved knows exactly where to play, what games are allowed, and nobody accidentally wanders off into these unexpected, time-sucking, and often expensive new zones. It brings order to potential chaos.
Okay, so our mission today then is to really unpack project scope management. We're going to explore these 6 fundamental but really powerful processes. These are like our toolkit, right? For defining, managing, and meticulously controlling a project's boundaries from the very beginning to the very end. It's about building a solid framework for success, keeping that original vision clear and intact.
And we're going to break these processes down into simple, everyday language. We'll use examples, vivid ones you might actually see right here in India, like planning that huge family wedding, or maybe a big puja at home, or perhaps something more complex, like building a new apartment block in your neighborhood, or even launching a new product. You'll see how understanding these concepts brings just immense clarity, efficiency, and, success to pretty much any endeavor you take on, big or small. This isn't just theory, it's really practical wisdom.
Get ready for some serious aha moments, because honestly, this isn't just some abstract theory for giant companies with massive budgets. No, this is practical, actionable stuff. Stuff that will help you make your plans work better, whether it's for a school project, organizing a local community festival, or even just, redoing your study space at home. It's about taking control of your ideas and making them real, without all the unexpected twists and headaches. It's about turning that vision into something tangible, something delivered. Okay, let's dig into this foundational idea first. When we talk about scope in projects, it's not just like one big blob of work. It actually has 2 sides, 2 really distinct facets that are critical to get your head around. Let's go back to that big family wedding example. When you're planning that, you're probably thinking about 2 very different sets of things, aren't you? There's what the wedding is when it's done, and then there's all the work you have to do to make it happen.
Precisely. Yeah, in the project management world, we make a fundamental distinction between these 2 main types of scope. And getting this difference right is absolutely essential. It's often where confusion starts, honestly, and that can lead to problems later. So first, we have product scope. This is the what. It defines exactly what you're creating or delivering, all the specific features, the functions, the characteristics that make up the final thing, whether it's a product, a service, or some other result. So for our wedding example, the product scope would be the finished wedding itself, with all its specific details. Think about it. What specific rituals are going to be performed? What kind of food is being served? Is it a huge multi-cuisine buffet? Or maybe a traditional South Indian thali on banana leaves? Or a rich North Indian spread? What about the decorations? Intricate flower arrangements? A glittering mandap? Or something more minimalist? How many guests are we talking? What's the venue like? What kind of entertainment? Live band, DJs, traditional folk dancers? This is the final result or service, as the customer, or the guest in this case, will experience it, all its specified features. It answers that basic question. What does it look like when it's successfully done? It's the finished article, the vision made real. Then, separate but related, we have project scope. This is the how. This covers all the work, every single task that needs to be done to deliver that product or service with all those features we just talked about. Sticking with the wedding, the project scope would be all the actual activities, designing and sending out maybe hundreds, even thousands of invitations, meticulously booking the right caterer for that specific menu, arranging the priest for the ceremonies at the right muhurat, the auspicious time, hiring the decorator to create that look, diligently managing the guest list, chasing RSVPs, coordinating transport for guests coming from out of town, all the behind the scenes running around, the coordination, the management. It's the how do we actually get this done part, the sum total of all the effort, all the tasks, all the resources needed.
Right. So product scope is like the finished biryani perfectly cooked, the aroma, the distinct layers, how it tastes, the garnish on top. And project scope is all the actual cooking, chopping the onions, marinating the meat or veggies, carefully layering the rice and masala, stirring the pot, managing the flame, the whole intricate process to prepare it. That makes it so much clearer. But I can totally see how easy it would be to mix them up, especially if you're new to this.
Absolutely, that's a great analogy. And you're spot on, they're often confused. A really common mistake is focusing too much on the product, the features, the cool stuff, without properly defining the project, meaning all the work needed to actually deliver those features. For instance, a client might say, I want an app that lets people order street food easily. Okay, that's product scope. But if you don't clearly define the project scope, which involves designing the UI UX, coding the backend, setting up secure payment gateways, doing thorough testing across different devices, deploying it to the app stores, marketing geek, you're heading straight for trouble. They're definitely intertwined, but they're conceptually different. The product is the destination. The project is the whole journey to get there. Let me give another, maybe more concrete analogy. Think about building a brand new apartment complex in a busy city like Mumbai. It's a common site across India, right? These huge construction projects. Okay, the product scope here, that's the finished apartments themselves and the complex as a whole. It includes everything the buyers will eventually get. Are they 2 BHK units or 3 BHK? Do they come with those nice modular kitchens already installed, specific brands for fittings? What amenities are included? Is there a swimming pool, a gym, a clubhouse, dedicated parking, maybe a rooftop garden? What kind of flooring? This is the tangible outcome. The physical apartments with all their features, the lifestyle they promise. It's what you eventually hand over the keys for. The project scope, on the other hand, that's all the work involved in actually constructing that complex. Everything from navigating the bureaucracy to get all the permits from the municipal corporation, which could be a project in itself, conducting soil tests, digging massive foundations, sourcing tons of steel and cement, laying thousands and thousands of bricks. Then there's installing complex plumbing, electrical wiring, lifts, painting every single wall, landscaping the common areas. It's all the physical labor, the engineering work, the meticulous coordination of dozens of different teams, plumbers, electricians, painters, masons, plus the overall management needed to bring that complex to life.
That makes perfect sense. So the product is what the buyer sees and uses in the end, and the project is all that complex, often hidden effort that goes into making it happen. It's like the difference between admiring a beautiful, intricate rangoli design during Diwali and actually spending hours preparing the colored powders and carefully drawing those patterns yourself.
Exactly. Now, how you actually manage all that scope, how you define it up front, how you track progress, how you handle changes that can really vary depending on the type of project. We call this the project's life cycle. Think of it like cooking again. Are you following a very strict, traditional step-by-step recipe? Or are you maybe experimenting a bit, trying things out, tasting as you go? So on one side, you have what we call a predictive life cycle. This is often called waterfall because, well, the steps flow sequentially downwards, like water over falls. It's like following that super detailed family recipe for, say, a classic Hyderabadi biryani, one that's been passed down for generations. You know all the ingredients, all the exact steps, precisely what the final dish should look and taste like before you even start chopping the first onion. In a predictive project, everything, the scope, the deliverables, the timeline, the cost, is defined in great detail right at the very beginning. Changes, well, they're generally discouraged, and if they happen, they're managed very carefully through a formal process because they can have big knock-on effects. A great example of a predictive project in India. Think about building a new metro line, maybe in Delhi or Bengaluru or Mumbai. The deliverables are incredibly clear and stable right from the start. You need specific stations at exact locations, tracks laid with precise alignments, a certain number of trains built to strict specifications, complex power systems, ticketing infrastructure, safety systems. It's all defined in immense detail up front. Now imagine trying to add a new station halfway through construction or changing the route slightly. That would be a massive undertaking involving a huge, carefully managed change process because it impacts everything: land acquisition, engineering designs, schedules, costs. It's all about stability, clear upfront plans, and minimizing surprises. Stick to the plan.
Right. So you map out the entire journey, every single step, every ingredient before you even take that first step. Makes total sense for those huge, really well understood projects where the end goal is super clear, relatively stable, and where making changes midstream is incredibly costly and disruptive.
Exactly. But then on the other hand, you have the adaptive or agile life cycle. This approach is often used when things are less certain. Maybe the requirements aren't fully known up front, maybe the technology is changing really fast, or maybe the stakeholders themselves aren't quite sure what they want until they actually see something tangible. This is more like experimenting with a new fusion dish. You might have a general idea. Let's say you want to make a spicy mango and paneer tikka, but you don't have a rigid, fixed recipe handed down. So you try a little bit, maybe marinate some paneer, grill it, taste it. Then you get feedback from your family or friends. Too spicy, needs more mango. And then you adjust the recipe as you go, adding a pinch more chili here, a bit more sweetness there. In an adaptive project, the detailed scope isn't defined all at once. Instead, it's defined in small, manageable chunks, often called iterations or sprints. You build a small part, you get feedback really quickly, and then use that learning to decide what to build next. A perfect Indian example for an adaptive approach. Developing a new mobile app, maybe one for ordering street food, connecting customers with local chaiwalas or vada pav stalls across different neighborhoods. When you start, you probably don't know all the features customers will want, or exactly how the market will react. So you might start by building a basic version that's your first iteration. Maybe it just lets users find and order samosas from nearby vendors and pay cash on delivery. Simple. You release that, maybe to a small group of early users. You get their feedback. What do they like? What's confusing? What's missing? Then, based on that feedback, maybe in the next iteration, you add features for ordering chaat. Then perhaps you expand to pav bhaji and dosas. Then you add integrated digital payments, and so on. Changes aren't just expected in this model, they're actually welcomed because they help you refine the product to truly meet what users need and adapt to how the market is changing. The focus is on delivering value quickly and learning iteratively.
Okay, this is where it gets really fascinating. So for things like apps, software, maybe even launching a new kind of service or a startup where user needs and the tech landscape can shift really fast, you don't try to plan everything perfectly from day one. Instead, you build a little piece, show it off, get immediate feedback, and then use that real-world reaction to decide what to build next. Even if that means changing direction a bit. That must keep everyone on their toes, but it also sounds like a great way to make sure the final thing is exactly what people actually want, even if their initial ideas change along the way.
It absolutely does. And that leads us straight into the key differences in how scope management actually works in these two different life cycles. The approach to defining and controlling scope is quite different. In those predictive projects, like our metro line, we rely very heavily on something called a scope baseline. Think of this as the official, approved, pretty much fixed version of your project scope. It's like the final signed-off blueprint for the metro. Any changes to this baseline, they have to go through a very formal, documented, controlled process. Often involves review boards, impact assessments, reapprovals. It's used as the benchmark throughout the project to measure against. In contrast, adaptive projects are much more fluid. They typically use something called a product backlog. This is essentially a prioritized list of features, requirements, or user stories. And the key thing is, this backlog can and is expected to change as you learn more, get feedback, and discover what's truly valuable. It's designed to be flexible, dynamic. In adaptive projects, the sponsor, the customer reps, the end users, they're continuously involved. They give feedback on the pieces of the product as they get built in each iteration. This ensures that the product backlog always reflects their most current needs and the changing market. This constant involvement is crucial. It bridges the gap between what someone thought they needed to start and what the real business needs turn out to be as the project unfolds. Think of it like this. For our strict biryani recipe, the predictive project, you decide almost everything upfront: ingredients, quantities, steps, and you stick to it. Deviations are rare, managed exceptions. But with our experimental fusion dish, the adaptive project, you might decide on the main ingredients, cook a small batch, taste it, and then decide exactly how much chili to add next time, or if it needs more mango puree. You're constantly getting feedback and refining your recipe for the next small piece of the dish. So instead of doing processes like collect requirements, define scope, and create WBS all once at the very beginning in massive detail in adaptive projects, you often repeat these steps, maybe in a more lightweight way, for each iteration or sprint.
You're constantly refining and sharpening the scope for the immediate next chunk of work, based on what you just learned. This also means that things like validate scope, getting acceptance, and control scope, managing changes, become ongoing activities, happening frequently, maybe at the end of every iteration, rather than just being big checks at the end of major phases.
All right, so now I've got a really good handle on what scope actually is, that difference between the product and the project, and we understand that projects can unfold in different ways, like following that strict recipe versus experimenting as you go. So let's dive into the 6 core practices or processes that really form the heart of managing scope effectively. Think of these as the interconnected steps in a grand plan, the system that helps ensure your project stays on track and delivers exactly what it set out to do. They build on each other logically. First up, the foundation, plan scope management. Now, I know this sounds a bit meta, right? Like planning how you're going to plan. It seems almost circular, but trust me, this step, even though it sounds abstract, is absolutely crucial. It's about deciding upfront how you're going to define the scope, how you'll manage it, and how you'll control it throughout the project. It sets the stage for everything else.
Exactly right. This process is all about setting the rules of the game for how we're going to handle everything related to scope for the entire project lifecycle. It's usually done once, right near the beginning of the project, but it's not set in stone. It's a living document. You might revisit and update it if the project changes significantly or you learn something new. The key benefit: it provides clear guidance and direction. It ensures everyone follows a systematic, consistent approach to scope. And out of this process, you essentially create 2 really important documents: a scope management plan and requirements management plan. Let's use our school annual day program example again. Before you even start brainstorming specific acts or holding auditions, plan scope management is where you decide how you're going to make those decisions. Will you have open auditions for everyone? Or will teachers select acts based on talent and how well they fit the theme? Maybe a joint committee of students and teachers. And how will you get the final list of acts approved? Does the principal need to sign off? Is there a cultural committee? Maybe the parent-teacher association gets a say. And critically important, how will you handle changes? What if someone suddenly wants to add a big complex dance number after everything's been finalized and rehearsals are underway? Planning this up front saves a massive amount of headache, confusion, and potential arguments later on. It sets clear expectations and procedures for everyone. So the outputs, the tangible results from this initial planning step are these 2 key documents. First, the scope management plan. This is your overall rulebook for how scope will be managed. It describes exactly how the entire project scope, remember, that's both the product and the project work, will be developed, monitored, controlled, and formally validated or accepted. It basically outlines the specific processes you'll follow for the other 5 core practices we're about to discuss. For instance, it details how the project scope statement will be created, how you'll build the work breakdown structure, WBS from the statement, how the crucial scope baseline, your approved plan, will be maintained and protected from uncontrolled changes, and exactly how you'll get formal acceptance of deliverables from the stakeholders. Now, for a huge infrastructure project, this plan could be a very formal, detailed document. But for something smaller, like planning a family reunion, it might just be a simple, informal agreement on how decisions will be made and changes handled. The level of detail scales with the project. Second, you create the requirements management plan. This is your specific blueprint for how you're going to handle all those wishes, the detailed requirements for the project, and the product that you'll gather from different people, the stakeholders. It describes the exact activities you'll undertake for planning requirements, tracking them, and reporting on their status. Importantly, it also details the configuration management activities specifically for requirements.
This means spelling out how will changes to requirements be initiated? Who can even ask for a change? How will you analyze the impact of proposed change on the project? How much more time or money might it cost? How will requirements be traced? Where did this one come from? And what other requirements or deliverables does it affect? How will they be tracked? What's its current status? Approved, rejected, implemented? And how will you report on all of this? It also outlines the authorization levels needed. Who has a final say on approving requirement changes? And it often covers how requirements will be prioritized. Because let's face it, you usually can't do everything everyone wants, especially not all at once. Think about it like this. Before starting a big family puja at home, traditional prayer ceremony, you'd first decide how you'll decide on the specific rituals. Will you consult the family elders, the local pandit? Both. How will you gather the exact list of all the items needed, the specific types of flowers, fruits, deities, offerings? And how will you make sure everything is done correctly, according to tradition, and at the auspicious time? That initial planning, that meta-planning about how you'll manage the whole process, that's plan scope management, it's like setting up your command center before the battle even begins, making sure everyone knows the rules of engagement.
Okay, game plan established. We know how we're going to manage scope. Now, this next part, collect requirements, this is where it gets really interactive and honestly kind of fun. This is where you basically become a detective, digging deep to figure out exactly what everyone involved, your stakeholders, wants and needs from the project. For a school annual day, this is like going out and asking everyone, students, teachers, the principal, parents, maybe even past attendees. What kind of performances do you really want to see? What kind of facilities do we need to make those performances amazing? You're essentially compiling the big wish list.
And this process is absolutely foundational. It's so critical. If you don't do a good job collecting requirements, you could spend enormous effort, time, and money building something technically brilliant. A slick mobile app, a beautiful building, only to find out at the end that it doesn't actually meet what users needed or wanted, which means it's useless, or you face costly rework. This process is all about systematically determining, clearly documenting, and then carefully managing all those stakeholder needs and requirements to make sure they align with the overall project goals. It's vital because these requirements you collect become the bedrock for everything else that follows. They directly influence your work breakdown structure, your cost estimates, your schedule, even your quality planning. Poorly defined requirements are consistently cited as a leading cause of project failure. You have to get this right. Now, to do this effectively, we use a whole toolbox of techniques for gathering data, analyzing it, and representing it clearly. We often use a combination of these. For data gathering, think about things like brainstorming. This is like that lively chai pe charcha session you might have with friends or colleagues. Everyone just throws out ideas, any idea, for the school project or the community event. No judgment initially, just get all the possibilities out there. Quantity over quality at first. Interviews. These are usually more structured, maybe one-on-one or in small groups. You talk formally or informally with key people who have crucial information or authority. For the annual day, you might interview the principal about their vision, the cultural head about artistic standards, or the facilities manager about stage limitations. Great for getting detailed, sometimes sensitive info and understanding the why behind requests. Focus groups. Here, you bring together a small, carefully chosen group of stakeholders, maybe a mix of students, parents, teachers for a guided discussion. A neutral facilitator leads the conversation, helping them explore expectations, preferences, and concerns about the annual day. It allows for dynamic interaction and helps uncover diverse viewpoints you might miss in individual interviews. You see where opinions align or clash. Questionnaires and surveys. Need info from a lot of people quickly, like all the students in the school, or potential buyers for those apartments. Sending out a Google form or printed survey is super efficient. Ask them to vote on performance types, rank preferred amenities, indicate price sensitivity. Excellent for gathering quantitative data from large, dispersed audiences. Benchmarking. This is basically learning from others. Look at how similar projects or organizations have tackled things. For the annual day, research how other top schools run their cultural events. What works well? What are their best practices? What pitfalls did they encounter? It's about identifying successful strategies and getting ideas for improvement by comparing yourself to others. Okay, so you've gathered all this raw data. Now for data representation, you need to organize it so it makes sense. Affinity diagrams. Remember those brainstorming sticky notes? With an affinity diagram, you physically group similar ideas together. All the dance ideas go here, all the drama ideas there, logistical points over here. It helps structure a large volume of unstructured ideas into logical categories, revealing underlying themes and patterns. Mind mapping. Start with your central topic, annual day, in the middle, then branch out to major categories. Performances, logistics, audience experience.
Then branch further out with specific ideas under each. It's a great visual way to show relationships between ideas and see the overall structure. And then there are techniques particularly useful in those adaptive or agile projects we talked about. Prototypes and storyboarding. These are about building a simple model or mock-up early to get feedback before you invest heavily in the final build. For example, let's say you're building that e-commerce site for the local shop selling traditional crafts, like beautiful Kanjivaram saris. Instead of building the whole functioning website first, you might show the shop owner a mock-up, just a picture, really, maybe a digital image or even a hand sketch of the home page or a product page, or maybe a simple clickable wireframe that simulates basic navigation. The shop owner can then immediately react, "Oh, I really want the new arrival section right at the top," or "Can we make the pictures bigger?" This early visual feedback is invaluable for refining requirements and avoiding building the wrong thing perfectly. It saves so much rework later. Storyboarding is similar. It's like drawing a comic strip that shows, step by step, how a user would interact with your new street food app. Screen 1. User opens app. Screen 2. User searches for Vatapavs. Screen 3. User sees a list of nearby stalls. And so on. It helps visualize the user journey and identify potential usability issues very early.
Wow, okay, there are so many clever ways to really dig deep and get those ideas out. It really does feel like being a detective, making sure you understand every clue, every need, and even getting a glimpse of what the final thing might look like before you commit huge resources. It's about building the right thing.
Precisely. And once you've gathered and refined all these wishes using these techniques, you produce two absolutely vital outputs. These really form the backbone for defining what your project is all about. First, the requirements documentation. This is your comprehensive big wish list, but now it's structured and detailed. It's a clear, unambiguous list of all the needs the project intends to meet. And these requirements need to be good quality themselves. They should be measurable. Can we tell if it's met? Testable. Can we prove it works? Traceable. Where did it come from? Complete, consistent, and acceptable to the key stakeholders. They often start high level and get progressively more detailed. And we categorize them to keep things organized. Business requirements. The big picture why. Why is the school doing an annual day? To showcase talent, enhance reputation, foster unity. Stakeholder requirements. What specific groups need? Students need a good stage. Parents want comfy seats. Solution requirements. What the product service must do. These break down further. Functional. What it does. Sound system plays music. Lights change color. These are the verbs, the actions. Non-functional. How well it does it. Sound system is clear and loud. Lights are reliable for 3 hours. Think performance, reliability, security, usability. These are the adjectives and adverbs, the quality aspects. A feature that works poorly is often useless. Project requirements. Things the project itself must achieve. Must finish by December 15th. Budget is 5 lakh rupees. Get stage permits. Quality requirements. Criteria for validating success. Costumes must use breathable fabric. Venue passes, fire safety check. The second crucial output is the Requirements Traceability Matrix, or RTM. Think of this as your master tracker. It's usually a table or spreadsheet that links every single requirement back to its origin, like a business objective or a specific stakeholder request, and tracks its status throughout the project lifecycle. It helps ensure that every requirement actually adds value, that it gets addressed in the design, that it's built, and that it's tested. Imagine that spreadsheet for the big family wedding again. Column 1, Requirement ID and Description, for example, BEG001. Caterer serves only vegetarian food. Column 2, Rational Business Need. Example, family tradition, many vegetarian guests. Column 3, Source Owner, e.g. Deli on DG request, family elders mandate. Column 4, Current Status, e.g. approved, caterer contract signed. Column 5, Verification Method, e.g. menu tasting session, final check on wedding day. Column 6, Related Test Case ID, e.g. TC Cater 005. This matrix is incredibly powerful. It helps manage changes. If someone wants to change VG001, you can see the impact. It ensures nothing gets forgotten. It shows dependencies and provides a clear audit trail. It often includes attributes like priority, version, and acceptance criteria too. It's traceability from the highest level need right down to the specific test that proves it works.
Okay, phew. We've done the detective work. We've used all those techniques, gathered every single wish, every requirement from everyone involved. We've got this potentially huge, maybe even slightly overwhelming wish list documented. Now, define scope. This is the core practice where you take that massive list and make the tough but absolutely essential decisions. What's actually going to be part of this project and what's not? This feels like where the real discipline comes in, right? To avoid that soup creep we keep talking about, this is where the rubber meets the road.
That's exactly right. This process is about taking all that collected requirements documentation and transforming it into a detailed, precise description of both the project, all the work needed, and the product, the final result. And you hit a key point. Not every requirement gathered in the previous step will necessarily make it into the final approved scope. This is where you have to make strategic choices, often based on budget, schedule, resources, or strategic alignment. You clearly state what's in scope, and just as critically, what's explicitly out of scope. This can require strong leadership, negotiation skills, and sometimes having difficult conversations to say no or not now. But it's absolutely essential for providing clarity and setting realistic expectations for everyone involved. The key benefit of this defined scope process is that it clearly draws the boundaries of your project. It's like painting that bright, unmissable line around the playground. Everyone knows exactly what's inside the line and what's outside. It also clearly states the acceptance criteria, those objective measures we talked about. Exactly how will we know if a specific deliverable is good enough and has met the agreed upon expectations? Now, this process can be quite iterative, especially in those adaptive projects. You might start with a high-level vision and then refine the scope with more detail for each iteration as you learn more. But even in Agile, each iteration needs a clearly defined, detailed scope for the work being done in that iteration. The single most important output, the cornerstone document from this core practice, is the project scope statement. This is your official, detailed, comprehensive document that describes the entire project scope. It becomes a common understanding for all project stakeholders, the client, the sponsor, the project team, key suppliers. It ensures everyone is working from the same page, aiming for the same target. It's significantly more detailed than the high-level descriptions you might find in an earlier document, like a project charter. It provides the necessary clarity to move forward with planning and execution. This project scope statement typically includes several critical components. Let's use our Mumbai apartment complex example again to illustrate. Product scope description. This elaborates progressively on the product characteristics. It builds on earlier high-level descriptions and adds significant detail. So for the apartment complex, it might say, the complex, Ganga Towers, will consist of 3 towers, A, B, C, each 20 floors high, with 4 3DHK units per floor, approximately 1,500 square feet each. Features include a double-height air-conditioned entrance lobby with 247 concierges, a dedicated children's play area, approximately 500 square feet, with imported safety flooring, a multi-level automated parking system providing 2 slots per unit, a rooftop terrace garden on Tower B with seating and a 100-meter jogging track, and a community hall, capacity 150, in the clubhouse. All units will include pre-installed modular kitchens from specific brand name, Model X, and bathroom fittings from specific brand name, Y Series. See how specific that is? Leaves little room for doubt. Deliverables. These are the unique, verifiable things you must produce. They're tangible, measurable outputs. For the apartment complex, deliverables could include Tower A structural completion, Tower A internal finishing completed, swimming pool construction and commissioning completed, gym fully equipped as per Annexure 3, occupancy certificate obtained from municipal corporation for all 3 towers, landscape gardens completed and maintained for 6 months post-handover, project marketing brochure, final version, sales office established and operational, and maybe a project closure report. Each one is a distinct item you can check off a list. Acceptance criteria. These are the specific conditions that must be met for each deliverable to be formally accepted. Makes acceptance objective, not just someone's opinion. For the swimming pool. Pool must be filled, water quality tested and certified compliant with municipal health standards, all filtration and pumping systems fully operational and tested for 72 continuous hours, poolside safety signage installed, and final inspection passed by municipal authority by date. Acceptance confirmed via joint sign-off sheet by project manager and residents association representative. These criteria eliminate arguments about whether something is truly done. Project exclusions. This section is absolutely crucial for managing expectations and preventing scope creep. It explicitly states what is not included in the project. You're proactively saying no here. For the apartment complex, a critical exclusion might be, the project scope does not include interior design services, customized furniture, wallpaper, decorative paint finishes, or electronic appliances, beyond standard specified fittings for individual apartment units. These are the responsibility of the individual buyers post-handover. Another might be, property registration fees and stamp duty are excluded from the apartment sale price and are payable directly by the buyer. This avoids that nightmare scenario where a buyer assumes something is included and gets angry later. Clearly stating exclusions manages expectations up front and prevents misunderstandings. It's a really powerful tool.
Wow. So this project scope statement really is the definitive blueprint, isn't it? It clarifies every little detail, makes sure everyone, buyer, builder, team is totally aligned, leaving absolutely no room for assumptions or those dreaded, but I thought you meant conversations later. It feels like it takes the initial high-level idea from the project charter and just fleshes it out with all the necessary nitty-gritty details. It truly sounds like the project's North Star, the document everyone refers back to.
It absolutely is the North Star, and that term we use, progressively elaborated, is key here. You start with a high-level concept, but as you go through these processes, collecting more requirements, analyzing them, making decisions, and find scope, the level of detail in this statement grows and solidifies. It's like an artist starting with a rough pencil sketch and then gradually adding layers of color, detail, and shading until it becomes a fully rendered, vibrant painting. The defined scope process is where you commit to that detailed, finished painting, agreeing exactly what it will look like.
Okay, we have our incredibly detailed blueprint, the project scope statement. It tells us precisely what we need to build and, just as importantly, what we don't need to build. Now, create WBS. This sounds like where you take that big, maybe slightly intimidating project like climbing Mount Everest and you strategically break it down into smaller, much more manageable chunks, bite-sized pieces. You mentioned the Diwali analogy earlier, preparing for Diwali at home. It seems like a massive undertaking initially, but you naturally break it down, right? Cleaning, cooking, shopping, decorating.
That's an absolutely perfect analogy for the work breakdown structure, or WBS. It is fundamentally about decomposition. It's a hierarchical breakdown of all the work that needs to be done to achieve the project objectives and create those deliverables defined in your project scope statement. The WBS organizes and defines the total scope of the project. Everything in the scope statement must be represented in the WBS and vice versa. It visually represents all the work in a structured, typically graphical format that's easy for everyone to understand. It's like creating a detailed family tree, but for the project's work. Let's flesh out the Diwali preparation WBS a bit more to see the structure. Level 1, Diwali preparation, the overall project, the top of the tree. Level 2, house cleaning and prep, a major deliverable or phase. Level 3, living room cleaning, a smaller component or sub-deliverable. Level 4, dusting all shelves and surfaces. This is a work package, the lowest level, a tangible, manageable unit of work. Level 4, washing windows and mirrors, another work package. Level 4, vacuuming carpets and sofa, another work package. Level 3, kitchen deep clean, another component.
Level 4, degreasing hob and chimney, work package. Level 4, cleaning inside oven and fridge, work package. Level 3, decluttering and organizing component. Level 2, festive food preparation, another major phase. Level 3, making sweets, mithai, sub-deliverable category. Level 4, prepare besan ladus. Work package assumes procuring ingredients as part of this or a separate package. Level 4, prepare kaju katli, work package. Level 3, making savories, namkeen, sub-deliverable category. Level 4, prepare mathri, a work package. Level 4, prepare chakli, work package. Level 3, shopping for additional items, component. Level 2, decorations and puja setup, third major phase. Level 3, lighting, sub-deliverable. Level 4, procure rangoli colors, work package. Level 4, purchase and test fairy lights, work package. Level 3, puja items and setup, sub-deliverable. Level 4, procure rangoli colors, work package. Level 4, design and create rangoli at entrance, work package. Level 3, puja items and setup, sub-deliverable. Level 4, purchase flowers and garlands, work package. Level 4, prepare puja thali, work package.
Wow, okay, seeing it laid out like that, it really is like a family tree for tasks. You just keep breaking down the work level by level until each task at the very bottom is so specific, so clear, that anyone can look at it and know exactly what needs to be done. Like the greasing hob and chimney, you know what that involves. It takes away the vagueness of just saying, clean the kitchen.
Precisely. And that brings us to a couple of really important concepts that make the WBS so useful. The work package. As you saw, that's the lowest level in the WBS hierarchy. It represents a discrete piece of work that can be realistically estimated in terms of cost and duration. It can be assigned to a specific person or team to manage and complete. It should result in a verifiable outcome or deliverable. Prepare besan ladus is a good work package. You know what done looks like. A plate of ladus. This granular level is essential for detailed planning, scheduling, and tracking progress. The 100% rule. This is a fundamental principle of WBS creation. It means the WBS must include 100% of the work defined in the project scope statement and capture all the deliverables, internal, external, interim, in terms of the work to be completed. Critically, it also means the WBS should not include any work that falls outside the actual scope of the project. If it's not in the WBS, it's not part of the project.
This rule ensures the WBS is complete and doesn't accidentally add extra work. Scope creep again. It helps integrate scope, schedule, and cost baselines. Rolling wave planning, we touched on this earlier. For really large or long projects, like our multi-year apartment complex construction, you might not know all the details for work far in the future. So you use rolling wave planning. You decompose the work happening soon, maybe the foundation and first few floors of Tower A, down to the detailed work package level. But the work much later, like the final interior finishes for Tower C or the clubhouse landscaping, might remain at a higher level in the WBS initially. You'll decompose those parts later as you get closer to doing them and have more information. This provides flexibility while still allowing detailed planning for the near term. It's a very practical approach, especially common in adaptive projects too. Now, the outputs from this Create WBS process are incredibly significant. They really form the core of your detailed project plan. The absolute most critical output is the scope baseline. This isn't just one document. It's the approved official version of 3 key things bundled together. Your project scope statement, the detailed the work breakdown structure, WBS, the hierarchical how, and something called the WBS dictionary, the details for the how. This scope baseline is your project's definitive, agreed-upon scope. It's the benchmark against which all future project performance and change requests will be measured. It can only be changed through formal change control procedures, which we'll get to a control scope. It provides stability and ensures everyone is working towards the same clearly defined, approved target. It's a cornerstone of the overall project management plan. And then there's the WBS dictionary. You can think of this as the detailed annotation or legend for your WBS map. For every single component in the WBS, especially those lowest level work packages, the WBS dictionary provides detailed information. For our Diwali example, for the work package Prepare Besan Ladus, the WBS dictionary might include code 2.1.1 description. Prepare approximately 50 Besan Ladus using traditional family recipe. Assigned to mom. Estimated duration, 3 hours. Required resources, Besan flour, 500 grams. Ghee, 250 grams. Sugar, 300 grams. Cardamom, nuts. Quality criteria. Ladus must be round, firm but moist, sweet but not overly so. Acceptance criteria. Case tested and approved by Dad. It provides all that granular detail needed for proper planning, execution, monitoring, and control. It defines the boundaries, the resources, the standards for each piece of work, ensuring clarity and preventing ambiguity.
Right, so this is where you take that grand vision, that detailed scope statement, and turn it into a completely actionable checklist right down to the smallest task. It creates a crystal clear roadmap for the entire team, making even a really complex project seem much more achievable, just taking it one work package at a time. It really translates the abstract plan into concrete, manageable steps. Okay, so we've done the planning, gathered the wishes, drawn the lines, broken down the work, and then the team actually did the work. We've produced something tangible, a deliverable, something we can actually show. Now, validate scope. This core practice is all about formally presenting what you've completed to the key stakeholders, typically the customer or the sponsor, and getting their official acceptance, their formal thumbs up. It's like after all that effort preparing for Diwali, you finally present your beautifully decorated home, the array of delicious sweets and snacks to your family and guests for their appreciation and approval. That moment of acceptance.
That's a lovely way to put it, highlighting that crucial element of stakeholder satisfaction. This process is absolutely essential. It formalizes the acceptance of the completed project deliverables. It's important to distinguish this from another process called control quality. Control quality is typically done first, and it's more about internal checks verifying that the deliverable is correct, that it meets the technical specifications, that there are no defects. Validate scope comes after quality control, usually, and is focused on gaining external acceptance from the customer or sponsor. Are they satisfied? Does it meet their needs as originally defined? This process brings objectivity to acceptance. It's not just the project manager saying it's done, it's the customer formally agreeing. This formal sign-off is often required to close out a project phase, release payments, or move on to the next stage. Let's use another analogy to really nail the difference between control quality and validate scope. Imagine you're a skilled tailor, maybe in a bustling market like Jaipur's Johari Bazaar, known for its beautiful fabrics and clothes. You've just finished making an exquisite custom lehenga for a bride-to-be. Control quality is you, the tailor, meticulously inspecting the finished lehenga before the client even sees it. You check. Is the stitching absolutely perfect? Are the measurements exactly as agreed? Is the expensive fabric flawless? Is all the intricate Sardozi embroidery secure? Are the tassels attached correctly? You're verifying its correctness against your own high standards and the agreed design specs. This is an internal check. Control quality
is you, the tailor, meticulously inspecting the finished lehenga before the client even sees it. You check. Validate scope happens when the bride-to-be comes in for her final fitting. She tries on the lehenga, twirls in front of the mirror, checks the fit, the fall, the overall look, and then hopefully she smiles and says, yes, it's absolutely stunning. It's exactly what I dreamed of. I accept it. That formal acknowledgement, that sign-off indicating it meets her needs and expectations, that is validate scope. She might ask for a tiny alteration. Can we just tighten this hook slightly? Which would trigger a small change request, but the core is her formal acceptance of the deliverable. Now, for this validate scope process to work smoothly, you need certain inputs. Primarily, you need the verified deliverables, the items that have already passed your internal control quality checks. You also need your scope baseline, the approved WBS, scope statement, and dictionary, because that defines what was agreed upon. And you need the requirements documentation, especially the acceptance criteria defined earlier, which specify exactly what conditions must be met for acceptance. As for the tools and techniques used here, inspection. This is the primary tool. It involves activities like measuring, examining, walking through, testing, or reviewing the deliverable to ensure it conforms to the requirements and acceptance criteria. It's the client trying on the dress, the building inspector checking the apartment's plumbing, the software user testing the new app feature. It's a hands-on review. Decision-making, e.g. voting. Especially when you have multiple key stakeholders who need to approve a deliverable, like a steering committee or maybe the whole family approving the wedding menu after a tasting. You might use a formal decision-making technique like voting. A majority vote, or maybe even unanimous consent, might be required to formally accept the deliverable. This ensures collective agreement is reached and documented. And the outputs from this critical acceptance step, they have a huge impact on project progression. The most important output, the goal really, is accepted deliverables. This signifies that the customer or sponsor has formally accepted the completed work. This acceptance is documented, usually through a formal sign-off sheet or system update. This provides objective proof that the deliverable meets requirements and allows the project to move forward, often triggering the next phase or final closure. It's a major win. However, if a deliverable isn't accepted, perhaps it doesn't meet the acceptance criteria, or the stakeholder identifies a defect or a missing element, then this process generates change requests. These are formal proposals to modify the deliverable or perhaps the project plans or processes to bring it into alignment or address the issue. For example, if the client finds a flaw in the lehenga's embroidery, a change request for defect repair is raised. These change requests then feed into our final core practice, control scope, for proper evaluation and management.
Right. So this isn't just about ticking a box saying the work is finished. It's really about ensuring the customer is genuinely happy with the outcome and formally acknowledges that satisfaction. It puts the power of approval squarely in their hands, which must feel good for them, and it provides a really clear, unambiguous signal for the project team that that piece of work is truly done and accepted. It's like the ultimate customer satisfaction checkpoint. And finally, we arrive at the sixth core practice, control scope. This is like the project's ever-vigilant watchtower, the constant guardian standing guard over your project's boundaries. Because let's face it, while the team is busy doing all the work defined in the WBS, things happen. New ideas pop up, unexpected problems arise, sometimes priorities subtly shift. These things can arrive like uninvited guests at a wedding. This core practice, control scope, is all about continuously monitoring the status of both the project scope, the work, and the product scope, the features, and most importantly, expertly managing any and all changes to that precious scope baseline we established earlier.
This is absolutely where you actively fight and manage scope creep, that insidious, uncontrolled expansion of the project or product scope, without corresponding adjustments being made to the schedule, budget, or resources. It's like having a dedicated stage manager for the annual day program who is constantly checking. Are we sticking strictly to the approved list of acts? Are rehearsals on track? And crucially, are we preventing that spontaneous, unplanned flash mob from suddenly appearing on stage, even if it seems like a fun idea at the time? Because that flash mob wasn't planned for, wasn't budgeted for, and wasn't rehearsed. Control scope ensures that all requested changes, even seemingly small ones, and any identified deviations are processed formally through a robust change control system. This is critical because uncontrolled changes are perhaps the single biggest reason why projects run late, go wildly over budget, or ultimately fail to deliver what was originally promised. It's so essential because, as we've said, change is pretty much inevitable in any project of reasonable size or duration. Someone will ask for something new or different. Market conditions might shift. A competitor might launch a new feature. An unforeseen technical issue might arise. Maybe regulations change, like new building codes for that apartment complex. This process ensures these changes are handled properly, formally evaluated for their impact, and then consciously approved or rejected, not just informally added on the fly. Those informal additions are the slippery slope to scope creep and can silently destroy your project's budget and schedule. Control scope doesn't work in isolation. It's deeply integrated with all the other control processes controlling schedule, cost, quality, risk, procurement. A change in scope almost always impacts one or more of these other areas. If you don't control scope effectively, you risk a cascade of problems: missed deadlines, blown budgets, compromised quality, and delivering something that nobody really wanted in the end. It's the discipline that keeps the project aligned with its approved objectives, even amidst turbulence. So how do we maintain this control? We use specific tools and techniques to monitor what's happening and manage the changes. Data analysis, variance analysis. This is fundamental. You constantly compare your actual performance against the planned performance defined in your scope baseline. Are we delivering what we said we would? Is the work matching the WBS? For the Diwali prep, we plan to spend 2,000 rupees on lights from the WBS dictionary, but we've actually spent 3,000 rupees. Why? Or the WBS said making ladoos would take 3 hours, but actually took 5 hours. What happened? You measure the difference, the variance, investigate the cause, and decide if corrective or preventive action is needed. This helps you spot scope deviations early. Trend analysis. This involves looking at project performance data over time. Are things getting better or worse? Is scope creep increasing or decreasing? For that street food app. Are the number of change requests for new features increasing with each sprint? Is this trend sustainable? Does it indicate our initial requirements gathering was insufficient, or that the market is evolving faster than expected? Analyzing trends helps you forecast future performance and anticipate potential scope problems before they become critical. Alternatives analysis. When a scope variance occurs or a significant change request comes in, you often need to evaluate different options for addressing it. What are the alternative ways to implement this change? What are the pros and cons of each alternative in terms of scope, schedule, cost, and quality impact? This helps make informed decisions about the best path forward. And the outputs from this continuous monitoring and management process are vital for keeping the project healthy and aligned. Work performance information. This is the processed, contextualized data on how the project is performing specifically against the scope baseline. Are we on track with delivering the defined scope? Are there scope variances? What's causing them? How significant are they? How might they impact the schedule or budget? For example, the stage setup deliverable is complete, but required additional structural bracing not in the original WBS, resulting in a 15% cost variance for that work package and a potential 2-day delay impact on the lighting setup. This information gives you the real-time status report on scope performance. Change requests. As mentioned, if you detect a variance, like a defect needing correction, or if a stakeholder submits a request for something new or different, this process generates a formal change request. That request from Auntie Ag for the special folk dance at the wedding, that becomes a formal change request document. These requests then flow into the project's integrated change control process, which often involves a change control board or CCB for larger projects. There, they will review their impact on all project constraints, scope, schedule, cost, quality, resources, risk is assessed, and a formal decision is made. Approve, reject, or defer. This formal process is the absolute gatekeeper against uncontrolled scope creep. Project management plan updates. This is critical. If a change request is approved, especially one that impacts the scope, it's not enough to just do the new work. You must formally update your project's foundational plans. This often means updating the scope management plan, definitely updating the scope baseline itself, the scope statement, WBS and WBS dictionary, and consequently likely updating the schedule baseline and cost baseline as well. Why is this so important? Because adding new scope almost always takes more time and costs more money. If you don't update your baselines, you'll forever be measuring progress against an outdated, unrealistic plan. Updating the baselines ensures your plan remains achievable, reflects the current approved reality, and provides a valid basis for future performance measurement.
Wow. That was quite a journey. We just navigated through all 6 of those core practices, those scope management superpowers. From planning how we're going to manage scope right at the start, to diligently gathering every single wish and need, then precisely drawing those clear boundary lines, strategically breaking down the huge mountain of work into manageable pieces, getting that crucial thumbs up of formal acceptance, and finally, that constant vigilance keeping everything on track and expertly managing those inevitable changes. It really feels like a complete dynamic framework for ensuring success.
It really is. And if you remember the core idea, it all comes back to this. Project scope management is about making absolutely sure your project includes all the work required, and only the work required, to complete it successfully, and deliver the intended value. Whether it's that small school project, a complex family wedding, launching a new business idea, or building a massive bridge, knowing your scope, defining it clearly up front, and managing it diligently throughout is fundamentally the difference between smooth sailing and, well, getting lost at sea or constantly battling that frustrating scope creep. It helps you deliver exactly what you promised, hopefully on time and within budget, which ultimately leads to happy stakeholders and a successful outcome. It's the discipline that turns ambitious visions into tangible realities without all the nightmares along the way.
So, here's something to think about. The next time you find yourself planning something, really, anything at all, big or small, just pause for a moment before you dive headfirst into the doing. What's maybe just one thing you could do right at the beginning to make sure you define your scope really clearly and try to prevent things from getting out of hand later? Perhaps it's as simple as taking 5 minutes to explicitly write down the exclusions, agreeing with everyone involved on what you are definitely not going to do as part of this particular effort. That simple act can be incredibly powerful for managing expectations down the line.
And building on that, consider this too. How might getting early acceptance on smaller pieces, those accepted deliverables, actually save you a huge amount of effort and lead to a much better final result? Like showing a rough draft of your school report to your teacher for feedback, and maybe even a preliminary sign-off. Or having your family do a proper food tasting session with a wedding caterer months in advance, rather than finding out the food isn't right on the wedding day itself. Thinking about scope isn't just some jargon for professional project managers in corporate offices. It's genuinely a crucial life skill. It's about clear thinking, effective planning, and successful execution in almost everything we undertake. So go forth and manage your scopes.